Welcome back and thank you so much for joining us. You're watching All Angles here on eNCA. My name is Cindy Mabi. We go to Sandton now, where ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa had wrapped up a dialogue with journalists ahead of the party's manifesto review. A number of issues, including the Johannesburg fire, the country's electricity crisis, the 350 Rand basic grant in higher education were discussed. And the upcoming elections were also discussed with the president, who was very confident that the ANC will get a majority vote. We have our reporter Moloko Moloto, who is in Sandton and joins us now. Moloko, thank you so much for your time. The president, really eloquent, as one of the guests was saying, very confident that the ANC will go into a coalition only with itself, but other pertinent issues also arising there. Just give us a wrap of what transpired.
Well, good afternoon, Cindy Mabi. Indeed, the president of the ANC fielding questions from both journalists as well as the academics. Of course, this is in view of the fact that the party will tomorrow be making public their manifesto review document for a more further discussion as we are now in an election mode. But let's speak to the first Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Menomvula Mkonyane, who is also head of elections. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. The party president has outlined the number of successes and also failures that over the past 5 years, after promising the electorate, some you achieved, some you did not. On issues of the economy, the issue of fighting corruption, building safer communities, and a whole lot of others. Some people will be wondering, tomorrow, as you will be making this review document public, key issues that you will be doing differently as you will be now trying to woo voters to elect you.
Thank you very much for inviting us. This is a review. It's a reporting on the progress that has been made since 2019 and a reflection also on the interventions that have been made, amongst others in the areas that we now have dubbed the 7 priorities, as they are reflected in our January 8 statement emanating from the 55th conference of the African National Congress. You can see there is a ramping up of creating job opportunities as the work is happening here in Gauteng, as well as the labor-intensive rollout of renewable energies, the solar panels and stuff, the issues around investing on skills development for young people. We remain very concerned about the huge numbers of young people who are unemployed. We now have Operation Shanyela. I'm sure this morning you have heard about 18 people who are alleged to be involved in the cash in transit, being all of them killed because of the confrontation they had with the police. You know that we've done a lot of work around the amendments of laws that hindered the participation and empowerment of women. You know that we are as yet to deal not only with the issues around provision of houses, but it is also about rolling out rental stock and site and service, including the inner city developments, so that we avoid what has happened now in the city of Johannesburg, the implementation of the district development model, which then forces all 3 spheres of government to work, because it's a legislated approach then that makes sure that everybody collaborates and we all work together.
All right. Ma'am, the criticism against the ANC as the governing party oftentimes is not so much about the policies that you come up with. It is more on the implementation part. It is at that point where perhaps somebody is going to ask to say, how specifically are you going to ensure that this time around you do get it right?
The district development model is one of our interventions where everybody comes together. It is also a model that KwaZulu-Natal at some point implemented through Operation Sukumasaki, where you make everybody to work within one space in a region, in a district, and do things together. Secondly, it is also about looking at not only the issues around brick and mortar for the development of this country, but also looking at social issues like gender-based violence. We now know that there is now an integrated approach. There is a national plan on dealing with gender-based violence and femicide. So the whole thing that we have learned is that we can't afford to work as silos amongst departments, and we can't also afford to work as silos across the three spheres of government. And lastly, we have to also improve oversight. The parliamentary system is also being considered. On our side, as the African National Congress, our branches are no longer just branches with 100 members. We hold our branches accountable in terms of what they do in their own ward. If there's a protest, the branch of the ANC must account. Why is there a protest when we have our ward councillor, the ward committee, and the membership of the African National Congress? We are busy now dealing with the issues of load shedding and blackouts, working together with Comrade Sputa as well as Comrade Pravin Gordhan to raise issues around illegal connections, looking at issues around the support for those who are indigent, and most importantly, making people realize that we can only be able to make interventions if we also take a responsibility.
All right, let me conclude with you. Going into the elections, as we have seen in the past, you have always roped in the previous party leaders to come and assist with the campaign. This time around, we had the former president of the ANC, Thabo Mbeki, saying it really is very difficult for him at times to even campaign for the ANC, considering that there are some criminal elements. This time around, are you going to be engaging people like himself, the former president of the ANC in the country, Jacob Zuma as well, given the troubles that he has had to go through? Are you talking to those leaders?
Yes, we are talking to them. And we shall go and engage with them formally as the organization. Whatever that is being said out there is what we need to engage. We need everybody. They have a responsibility as elders of the movement to help in the agenda of the renewal of the African National Congress.
Thank you so much for your time. Nomvula Mokonyane. Cindy, I just want to speak to the Deputy Minister. Okay, stand this side, Deputy Minister. Buti Manamela, he's a member of the ANC's National Executive Committee as well as the Deputy Minister of Higher Education. Mtlalwa, thank you so much for your time. You have heard the concerns, specifically one that was raised by the former Vice Chancellor of UCT, Professor Mamkheti Phakeng, on the army of young people who are not in employment, they're not in any form of training, they're roaming the street. She's even cautioning that there could be an element of people who may just utilize them for a possible uproar in the country. How are you dealing with people such as those?
Well, look, I mean, firstly, the higher education sector, especially the post-school education and training sector, has grown significantly, 150% compared to 15, 20 years ago. And I think the growth is monumental. Yes, there are only 2 new universities that have been built, but I don't think we should discount the fact that some of the individual universities themselves have grown. About 10, 15 years ago, Tshwane University of Technology had just under 20,000 students. Today they are one of the largest contact institutions. So I think it may be unfortunate to suggest that there's not been much that has been done and assess progress only in terms of the 2 new universities. But the system has grown at least more than 150%. But I think the second important thing is that we've also expanded the TVET sector, which has grown 5-fold, compared to the university sector. And of course, the target set by the new National Development Plan is that by 2030 we should have about 2.5 million students at TVET sector and about 1.6 million students at university sector. And yes, we're closer as it relates to the universities, but a lot of work still needs to be done, and that's why this is a major priority. But I think also critically, I think the president also spoke about certain measures to stimulate the economy and create employment. One of the most important observation is that unemployment graduate has actually been relative, and that's why opportunities given in the post-school education and training sector will I think put those young people in a better position.
We don't have much time left, but I have this final question for you quickly. You talked about unemployment among graduates. It has actually doubled. A few years back it was at 6%. It is now at about 11.9% or so, around 12%. These are people who went to university. There's also a concern about skills mismatch, which would then speak to the quality of education they are receiving, to say they seem to be certificated as young people, but in terms of the actual skills, they cannot be absorbed. How are you addressing that?
Well, it's not the function of education, by the way. And if you look at the same period, because this growth of anything between 10 to 12% of unemployed graduate is something that we've experienced over the last 5 years, where real employment itself has doubled, where young people are not in employment and education system themselves have doubled. So it's a reflection on the broader economy and not necessarily on the quality of our education system. And I think as soon as the economy starts picking up and employment start growing, the most immediate people who are going to start benefiting from that are those graduates who are unemployed. Because I think studies show that when one enters a university or a TVET college, they stand a much better chance. But what we're also doing now is, through the National Skills Fund and our CETAs, we're retraining and repurposing some of these graduates, to focus on things such as hydrogen, energy, to get them to, upskill them, into entrepreneurial initiatives. We're launching projects after projects whose intention is targeted at graduates, even placement, of those. But the idea is that this core of graduates need to be the ones that contribute towards employment creation by creating small, medium and macro enterprise and a whole range of other interventions.
Thank you so much. Buti Manamela, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education and member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. The issue of young people, given the fact that many of them are unemployed, they are not even in higher training, and they are so despondent. And if you look at the numbers, young people in this country are the majority when it comes to voters, and they are the ones, if they were to register and vote in the upcoming elections, there's no doubt they can actually change the trajectory of this country and can determine who governs the country after the 2024 elections.
Moloko, just another question around the 350 Rand grant and the means, or the means test, which the question was that it creates dependency and that the social security net should also be reinforced, particularly with young people that find themselves on the unemployment list and those that have even given up any hope of ever getting employment. Just talk us through that point where the President was saying that he has extensively engaged with NGOs in this particular space to provide a universal or decent universal basic income grant.
The issue of basic income grants, Cindy, has always been a talking point. Even in the congresses of the African National Congress, it's been discussed at length. And there seems to be movement towards that particular direction. You even had the President saying that the 350 Rand, which has been given to the people who had no means of income during the punitive lockdowns at the height of COVID-19, and that payment of the 350 Rand continued even to date. And there are discussions, we understand, as he has alluded, that perhaps that particular continuation of the payment of the 350 Rand will inform the discussions and a way forward in terms of implementing the basic income grant. But let us not forget that we are going to elections. It is very much in the interest of those who are governing now to make these overtures and commitments and to try to reach out to those who are really feeling the pinch of joblessness and all other social ills, to say these are the solutions we are giving. This has been a matter that's been spoken about for very many years. We haven't had the timelines commitment on those on the side of the President of the Republic. Of course, this would be discussions that would also require require the engagement and the National Treasury to tick those boxes, because you might have heard the president also talking about the fiscus, saying that we are not able to generate much as we had expected. That obviously will have an impact. He's even talking about recalibrating or even reprioritizing in terms of the projects that the current budget has, even the upcoming budget will have to address. So the big question is, how will the basic income grant fit in to this fiscus that is so squeezed?